The WWE has been the biggest pro wrestling company in the world for decades. But from 1997 to 2005, the WWE experienced its hottest and most popular period ever. This was the era that gave us Stone Cold stunning his boss, The Rock electrifying millions, Kane giving everyone nightmares, and The Undertaker's streak becoming sacred. We watched names like John Cena, Batista, and Brock Lesnar burst onto the scene, and we also mourned as Owen Hart and Eddie Guerrero were taken too soon. We had Jeff Hardy jumping off insane heights, Edge stealing girlfriends, Shawn Michaels stealing the show, Chris Jericho being cool, and Triple H dominating Raw with his reign of terror. Over these 9 years, we witnessed the birth of legends, the fall of empires, and moments that took WWE from the brink of bankruptcy to a mainstream juggernaut. So today, we're rewinding the clock and revisiting the hottest period in WWE history. This is the story of WWE's greatest era, starting with the year it all began, 1997. As 1997 began, WWE was in serious trouble. WCW was destroying them in the ratings every single week, and the company was dangerously close to going bankrupt. But what looked like WWE's darkest hour would ultimately become the catalyst for its biggest transformation. The year started with Shawn Michaels as WWF champion, but everything changed when an injury forced him to vacate the title. Behind the scenes, many believed this was HBK's way of avoiding a scheduled title loss to his rival Bret Hart at WrestleMania. And this rivalry set the tone for a year filled with real-life drama that'd lead to the most controversial finish in wrestling history later in the year. Meanwhile, a certain redneck named Steve Austin was supposed to be a villain, but fans were connecting with his anti-authority persona in ways WWE hadn't anticipated. At the Royal Rumble, Austin won the match by sneaking back in after Bret Hart eliminated him. Commissioner Gorilla Monsoon refused to give Austin his WrestleMania title shot, instead booking him in a fatal four-way for the vacated title. Bret Hart won the title, but Austin would cost him just days later. Then came WrestleMania 13, and the match that changed everything. Austin and Bret Hart delivered one of the greatest Mania matches of all time. But more importantly, it featured the legendary double turn. The image of a bloodied Austin refusing to give up turned him into a hero. Meanwhile, Bret attacked Austin after the bell, completing his transformation into a villain. Austin would continue raising hell and feuding against the Hart Foundation until a botched piledriver at SummerSlam almost ended his career. But 1997 had more shocks in store. Paul Bearer revealed that The Undertaker's brother Kane was still alive. Kane debuted at the first ever Hell in a Cell match at Bad Blood, ripping the cage door off to lay out his brother. This kick-started the most iconic supernatural feud in WWE history that had become a part of mainstream culture. But while Kane and Taker engaged in their personal war, a bigger controversy was about to shake the WWF. WWF champion Bret Hart was leaving for WCW and refused to lose the championship to a recently returned Shawn Michaels in Canada, given their history of real-life hatred. Not wanting to risk his company's champion appearing on WCW with the top prize, Vince McMahon and a select few orchestrated the Montreal Screwjob, which would go down as the most controversial finish in pro wrestling history. Vince had the referee call for the bell while Bret was in the sharpshooter, making it appear that Bret had submitted. Michaels and DX quickly rushed backstage, while fans threw garbage in the ring and Bret spat at Vince. The night after, Vince did a sit-down interview sporting a black eye from Bret, telling the world, "Bret screwed Bret." The Mr. McMahon character, wrestling's greatest villain, was born, and the pieces were in place for the biggest rivalry in WWE history. If 1997 laid the foundation, 1998 was the year WWE's revolution went mainstream. The Austin vs. McMahon rivalry became the hottest storyline in professional wrestling, finally giving fans a reason to switch from WCW Nitro to Monday Night Raw. The year started explosively at the Royal Rumble when Stone Cold won the match, earning a WrestleMania title shot. But the moment everyone remembers came the next night on Raw. Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, appeared to announce his involvement as special enforcer for the WrestleMania main event. Austin marched down, got in Tyson's face, flipped him off, and sparked a brawl that had to be broken up by dozens of security guards. The segment brought massive mainstream attention to WWE, and suddenly everyone was talking about wrestling again. At WrestleMania 14, in a shocking twist, Tyson revealed he was aligned with Austin rather than DX, raising Stone Cold's hand as the new champion. The Austin era had officially begun, and the boss wasn't happy. Throughout the spring and summer, McMahon tried everything to take the title from Austin. But the more McMahon tried to destroy him, the more popular Austin became. Meanwhile, The Undertaker and Kane's supernatural saga dominated the other half of the main event scene. Kane had cost Undertaker the championship at the Royal Rumble by setting his casket on fire, but the dead man returned just in time for WrestleMania and got his revenge. McMahon eventually weaponized their hatred, pointing both brothers at Austin. At King of the Ring in June, Kane actually won the WWF Championship, though Austin recaptured it the very next night on Raw. The night also saw Undertaker throw Mankind off the top of the Hell in a Cell in one of the most replayed moments in pro wrestling history. However, the biggest story of 1998 came at Survivor Series. The Austin-Kane-Taker saga had eventually led to the WWF title being vacated, and the Deadly Game tournament was held to crown a new champion, with the finals pitting The Rock against Mankind. Earlier in the night, Shane McMahon revealed he'd been aligned with his father all along, screwing Austin out of the tournament. But then came the massive swerve. The Rock turned on Mankind and aligned with Vince McMahon, becoming the corporate champion. The People's Champion had become the most hated man in WWE, declaring he didn't sell out, he bought in. By year's end, WWE had finally turned the tide in the Monday Night Wars. The Rock had transformed from hated babyface to electrifying heel. Kane, Mankind, and Taker had cemented themselves as major players in the main event scene. Vince and Shane became the most hated father-son duo in wrestling, and Austin was poised for revenge against The Rock and the McMahons. The momentum from 1998 carried into 1999, but this would become known as the Attitude Era's messiest and most controversial year. It started strong when Mankind defeated The Rock for the WWF Championship on the January 4th episode of Raw. WCW spoiled the result on Nitro, hoping fans would stay with their show. But the tactic backfired and a huge portion of Nitro's audience switched channels to watch Mick Foley's crowning moment. At the Royal Rumble, The Rock defeated Mankind in a brutally controversial I Quit match that featured an obscene number of chair shots. Then came the Rumble match with Austin and Vince entering as the first two competitors. Austin got beat up by the corporation and taken to a hospital during the match, only to return in an ambulance and unleash chaos. However, a distraction from The Rock allowed Vince to eliminate Austin and win the Rumble to earn a title shot against The Rock at WrestleMania. Vince forfeited his WrestleMania opportunity the next night, and WWF Commissioner Shawn Michaels immediately awarded it to the runner-up Steve Austin instead. The build-up to this match also saw the WWF debut of The Big Show, who would become one of the most recognized wrestlers of all time. Austin defeated The Rock for the title at WrestleMania 15, and the power struggle between Austin and McMahon escalated when Linda and Stephanie gave their WWF stock to Stone Cold, making him company CEO. April brought another shocking development when Shane McMahon merged his father's corporation with The Undertaker's Ministry of Darkness, creating the Corporate Ministry. The ministry kidnapped Stephanie McMahon, and for months, WWE teased that a mysterious higher power was pulling the strings. The reveal finally came in June that it was Vince McMahon all along, and Vince and Shane eventually won back control over WWF from Austin in a ladder match at King of the Ring. But then came May 23rd, a date that would haunt WWE forever. At the Over the Edge pay-per-view, Owen Hart fell from the rafters during his entrance and died in the ring. This would go down as one of the darkest days in pro wrestling history, and WWE's decision to continue the show after the accident drew massive criticism. Despite the darkness, 1999 did introduce two future legends. Chris Jericho debuted from WCW in August with massive fanfare. Then, in November, Kurt Angle made his WWE debut at Survivor Series, beginning what would become one of the greatest rookie years in wrestling history. At SummerSlam, Mankind shockingly defeated Austin for the WWF Championship, only to drop it to Triple H the next night on Raw. The year ended with the McMahon-Helmsley era beginning when Triple H defeated Vince McMahon at Armageddon. It was revealed that Stephanie had been working with Triple H all along, willingly marrying him as revenge for her father's actions earlier in the year. The real-life couple would become a power force both on and off-screen for years to come. But as 1999 came to a close, all the pieces were in place for what many consider the greatest year in WWE history. With Stone Cold sidelined for neck surgery, many wondered if WWE could maintain its momentum without their biggest star. The answer came in the form of The Rock, who finally stepped out of Austin's shadow to prove he could carry the company as its top babyface. The Great One won the Royal Rumble in January, setting up his WrestleMania main event and beginning a year where he would headline an astounding 10 out of 12 pay-per-views. But 2000 wasn't just about The Rock's ascension. It was the year WWE's roster depth reached unprecedented levels. In January, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn jumped ship from WCW as The Radicals, immediately elevating the in-ring quality across the board. However, no talent proved himself faster than Kurt Angle. The Olympic gold medalist's rookie year was nothing short of extraordinary. His arrogant, all-American hero character was perfect heel work, and his amateur wrestling background gave him a unique style that meshed perfectly with sports entertainment. By October, Angle had captured the WWE Championship, completing a journey from Olympic rookie to world champion in less than a year. The tag team division reached heights that have arguably never been matched. Edge and Christian, the Hardy Boys, and the Dudley Boys completely redefined what tag team wrestling could be. Their triangle ladder match at WrestleMania 2000 was just the beginning. At SummerSlam, they delivered the first ever tables, ladders, and chairs match, a chaotic masterpiece that transformed tag wrestling from bathroom breaks to must-see TV. The main event of WrestleMania 2000 saw Triple H retain the WWE Championship in a fatal four-way against The Rock, Big Show, and Mick Foley, a McMahon in every corner creating maximum drama. Stone Cold returned at Backlash to a thunderous reaction, immediately inserting himself back into the main event scene. But the year wouldn't be complete without some absurd storylines. The Austin Mystery Attacker angle culminated with Rikishi taking credit before it was revealed Triple H had orchestrated everything. Meanwhile, the love triangle between Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, and Kurt Angle added soap opera drama that somehow worked perfectly. The year closed with Armageddon's first ever six-man Hell in a Cell, a match that brought together every major storyline of the year. Austin seeking revenge, The Rock chasing gold, Triple H proving his dominance, Undertaker claiming this is his yard, Kurt Angle defending his title, and Rikishi paying for his betrayal all collided in one historic encounter. From a business and creative standpoint, 2000 was WWE's absolute peak, the gold standard against which all other years are measured. But if 2000 was epic, 2001 would change the WWE forever. The year 2001 started strong with Stone Cold winning his record third Royal Rumble, but the biggest shock came just weeks later. WrestleMania 17 in Houston is considered by many to be the greatest wrestling pay-per-view of all time. The show delivered on every level. Edge and Christian, the Hardy Boys, and the Dudley Boys outdid themselves with TLC 2, an even more spectacular sequel to their SummerSlam classic. The Undertaker defeated Triple H in an intense fight. Shane McMahon beat his father Vince with help from his mother Linda and Trish Stratus. But the main event would steal the whole show. Steve Austin challenged The Rock for the WWF Championship in what should have been a standard battle of alphas. Instead, Austin turned heel and aligned with Vince McMahon in one of the most shocking moments in wrestling history. When The Rock left for Hollywood the very next night to film The Scorpion King, WWE was suddenly without both of its top babyfaces. The situation worsened when Triple H aligned with Austin to form the two-man power trip rather than turning face to oppose him. The duo held the WWF Championship and Tag Team titles simultaneously, dominating Raw until Triple H tore his quad in May and would be out of action for the rest of the year. But the biggest story of 2001 came with WWE's purchase of WCW. The Monday Night Wars was officially over, and WWE had won. WCW's invasion began in May with Lance Storm interfering in a match, followed by Diamond Dallas Page and Booker T. But there was a massive problem. WWE refused to buy out the guaranteed contracts of WCW's biggest stars like Goldberg, Sting, and the NWO, meaning the invasion was led by mid-carders. To boost the angle, ECW was revived and merged with WCW to form The Alliance, with Stephanie McMahon becoming ECW's owner. At the Invasion pay-per-view in July, Steve Austin shockingly turned heel again, joining The Alliance despite it making no storyline sense. The angle that should have been a home run was failing because fans couldn't buy The Alliance as a legitimate threat without the big-name WCW stars. The invasion mercifully ended at Survivor Series in November with Team WWE defeating Team Alliance in a winner-takes-all match. Kurt Angle revealed himself as a double agent, screwing Austin and giving The Rock the victory. But 2001 had one last major moment. At Vengeance in December, Chris Jericho defeated both The Rock and Steve Austin on the same night to become the first ever undisputed champion. 2001 was a year of missed opportunities, shocking turns, and new arrivals. The year marked the end of the Attitude Era, and a more ruthless and aggressive chapter was about to begin. After losing a legal battle with the World Wildlife Fund, the World Wrestling Federation officially became World Wrestling Entertainment. The company literally had to get the F out, and WWF became WWE. But the name change was just one of many massive shifts in 2002. After the arrival of WCW and ECW stars, the roster had become so bloated that WWE implemented a brand split, dividing talent between Raw and SmackDown as separate shows with their own champions and storylines. By September, there were 2 world titles. the WWE Championship on SmackDown, and the newly created World Heavyweight Championship on Raw, which Eric Bischoff simply handed to Triple H without a tournament. The year saw the WWE debut of the NWO, who initially debuted as heels, but fans simply refused to boo Hogan, who returned to the company after almost a decade. Hogan turned babyface within 30 days, and at WrestleMania 18, his match with The Rock had the crowd going crazy. The Rock left for Hollywood shortly after WrestleMania to pursue his acting career full-time. Then in June, Stone Cold Steve Austin walked out of the company due to creative differences. WWE's two biggest stars, the men who had carried them through the Attitude Era, were suddenly gone, and WWE was left with a massive void. But WWE had been preparing for this moment. A new class of talent debuted in 2002 that would define the next generation. Brock Lesnar, a freakish athlete and amateur wrestling champion, debuted on Raw and immediately received a rocket push. Lesnar defeated The Rock at SummerSlam to become the youngest world champion in history. John Cena arrived by answering Kurt Angle's open challenge. Randy Orton came in as a cocky third-generation star. Batista joined as an intimidating powerhouse. And Rey Mysterio brought his revolutionary masked high-flying style to SmackDown. The year brought emotional returns as well. In January, Triple H came back from his torn quad to a deafening ovation at Madison Square Garden. The game would go on to dominate the main event scene and defeat Jericho for the undisputed championship at WrestleMania 18. Then at SummerSlam, Shawn Michaels returned to in-ring action after 4 years away, facing Triple H in an emotional, unsanctioned match where HBK got the win. The year also gave us the first ever Elimination Chamber match, where Michaels dethroned Triple H as the World Heavyweight Champion, only to lose it back a month later. The year closed with Brock Lesnar as WWE Champion, while Triple H's reign of terror was beginning on Raw. The Ruthless Aggression era was officially underway, and a new generation was ready to take over. Triple H's reign of terror reached its peak in 2003, and there seemed to be no escape from the game's iron grip on Raw along with his faction, Evolution. At the Royal Rumble in January, fans suffered through a disastrous 17-minute match between Triple H and Scott Steiner. Meanwhile, on SmackDown, Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit stole the show with an excellent WWE Championship match, and Brock Lesnar won the Rumble itself. WrestleMania 19 in Seattle delivered one of the most underrated manias of all time. Despite nearly ending in tragedy, Brock Lesnar won the WWE Championship, but nearly offed himself attempting a shooting star press, landing directly on his head in one of the most terrifying botches in WrestleMania history. The show also featured the final installment of The Rock and Austin saga, with The Rock winning to send the Texas Rattlesnake into an unannounced retirement. Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho delivered a 5-star classic, proving HBK could still hang with the best. Former WCW powerhouse Goldberg debuted after WrestleMania, immediately confronting The Rock and bringing fresh energy to Raw. At Backlash, he demolished The Rock in dominant fashion. WWE finally seemed to have a new top star capable of dethroning Triple H. But at SummerSlam, in the Elimination Chamber, Triple H eliminated Goldberg last to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. It should have been Goldberg's coronation moment, but the game's reign of terror wouldn't allow it. When Goldberg finally won the title at Unforgiven in September, it was too late, and his momentum had already been killed. The reign lasted only until December's Armageddon, where Triple H defeated Goldberg to recapture the title. All 4 Evolution members won championships that night, achieving a clean sweep. Kane transformed from a beloved mid-carder to a menace to society when he unmasked and turned Monday Night Raw into a horror show. Meanwhile, on SmackDown, the SmackDown 6 raised the bar for in-ring action, while John Cena transformed from a generic rookie into a freestyling rapper. By year's end, it was clear 2003 had been a difficult transitional period. Triple H's stranglehold had exhausted fans, though the continued excellence of wrestlers like Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and the rising John Cena offered hope for the future. With the pieces in place, the year 2004 would bring 2 of the most emotional and inspiring stories in WWE history, and one of its most disappointing matches. At the Royal Rumble, Chris Benoit entered at number 1 and lasted over an hour to win the match, defying all odds. But the bigger story came at No Way Out on the SmackDown side, where Eddie Guerrero challenged Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship. Eddie had overcome drug addiction, rebuilt his life, and worked his way back to the main event. Few expected him to actually win. WrestleMania was just a month away, and Lesnar was rumored to be facing Goldberg. But after battling the Beast for nearly 30 minutes, Eddie hit the frog splash, got the pin, and became WWE Champion in one of the most emotional moments WWE has ever produced. Then came WrestleMania 20 at Madison Square Garden. Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg should have been a dream match, but word had leaked that both men were leaving WWE. Lesnar was tired of the brutal travel schedule, and Goldberg's contract was expiring. The Madison Square Garden crowd booed both men mercilessly throughout the entire match. Both looked miserable and put in minimal effort, creating one of the most awkward WrestleMania matches ever. However, that didn't stop the show from being iconic. The Undertaker returned as the Dead Man after years as the biker character, defeating Kane to extend his streak. John Cena defeated the Big Show in the opening match of the night to become the US champion. And in the main event, Chris Benoit defeated Triple H and Shawn Michaels in a triple threat match to win the World Heavyweight Championship. The show closed with Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, best friends in real life, celebrating together in the ring, both holding world titles. It was a magical moment that has since largely been erased from history by the tragedy that would come years later. Meanwhile, on the bright side, Randy Orton continued his rise as the Legend Killer, feuding with Mick Foley in a legendary hardcore match at Backlash. At SummerSlam, the 24-year-old Orton defeated Benoit to become the youngest world heavyweight champion in WWE history. But the very next night, Triple H kicked him out of Evolution, furious that his protege had surpassed him. At Unforgiven, the Game defeated Orton to reclaim the title after just 28 days, and the reign of terror continued. On the SmackDown side, John Cena continued his rise with the US title, while JBL transformed from a mid-carder into a cowboy champion and feuded with Eddie Guerrero and The Undertaker. In other notable moments, Undertaker buried Paul Bearer in cement. Heidenreich did some questionable things to Michael Cole. Kurt Angle got chokeslammed off a balcony, and Kane and Lita had one of the most violent weddings in history. But as 2004 came to an end, WWE was ready for its hottest year since 2000. The year 2005 marked a generational shift in WWE. After years of dominance, Triple H's reign of terror was finally about to end, but not before one of the greatest botches in Royal Rumble history. Batista and John Cena were the final two competitors in the Rumble. In the planned finish, Batista was supposed to get the win. Instead, they accidentally eliminated each other for real, and both hit the floor at the exact same time. In one of the funniest moments in wrestling history, Vince McMahon stormed down to the ring to fix the situation, and legitimately blew out both of his quads climbing through the ropes. The match was restarted, and Batista won as planned, but the image of an injured Vince seething in the ring became an instant meme. The WrestleMania 21 build was equally electric. Batista teased which champion he would face, with many wondering if he'd go to SmackDown and allow Evolution to control both brands. But on the February 21st Raw, Batista gave Triple H the thumbs down, the same gesture the Game had used on Randy Orton the year before, and powerbombed him through a table. At WrestleMania 21, history was made twice. John Cena defeated JBL to win the WWE Championship, beginning his journey to becoming the face of WWE for the next 15 years. And after over 2 years of Triple H's reign of terror holding Raw hostage, Batista defeated the Game to win the World Heavyweight Championship and become the new face of Raw. A new era had officially begun, with two young stars leading their respective brands into the future. But then, the 2005 draft shocked everyone when John Cena was moved to Raw, leaving SmackDown without their top champion. Days later, Batista was drafted to SmackDown, taking his title with him. June also brought the legendary ECW One Night Stand pay-per-view, a nostalgia-filled event that's considered one of the greatest shows of all time. But the year wouldn't be complete without some career-defining controversies. Matt Hardy had been fired for going public about his girlfriend Lita's affair with Edge, but fans saw Hardy as the victim, and the massive heat on Edge and Lita actually elevated their careers. The feud culminated in a series of matches at SummerSlam, Unforgiven, and Raw, with Edge winning the majority of them. In the end, Hardy lost a loser leaves Raw ladder match and was sent to SmackDown. Edge and Lita remained together on Raw, and their real-life relationship gave rise to one of the most hated couples in WWE history. Meanwhile, on SmackDown, Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero fought over the custody of Dominik, with Eddie claiming that he was Dominik's real father. The year also saw the epic rivalry between Randy Orton and The Undertaker, with Orton doing everything in his power to slay the dead man, but Taker proving time and time again that you can't kill what's already dead. In the main event of SummerSlam, Shawn Michaels made a mockery of Hulk Hogan, overselling every single move in comically exaggerated fashion to protest Hogan's backstage politicking. Though Hogan got the win, HBK was the real winner in fans' eyes. But then, the year took a tragic turn on November 13th when Eddie Guerrero died from a heart attack. WWE dedicated special tribute episodes of Raw and SmackDown to Latino heat, allowing everyone to grieve the loss of one of wrestling's most beloved figures. The year ended with Batista solidified as SmackDown's top star and John Cena continuing to divide audiences. Triple H had finally been dethroned, Randy Orton was establishing himself as a main event player, and Edge was lurking with his money in the bank briefcase, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The greatest era of WWE was coming to a close, but it had accomplished its mission of creating the next generation of superstars who would carry the company for years to come. From 1997 to 2005, WWE transformed from a struggling company on the verge of bankruptcy into a mainstream entertainment juggernaut. Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, Mick Foley, Chris Jericho, Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, John Cena, Batista, and Randy Orton all left their marks on this incredible period. Some moments were magical, others tragic, but together they created the greatest era professional wrestling has ever seen. A time that will never be forgotten and can never be replicated.